If you clicked on this video, I can assume that you constantly struggle with FPS issues. In today's video, I'm going to break down my personal settings that helped me reach top 1000 in all of North America by showing you how to maximize the FPS you get in game. I'm going to go over tons of content in this video that will 100% benefit you, so make sure to stick to the end so you don't miss out on anything important. But before we get into it, I want to give a huge thanks to today's sponsor, Hone.gg. Hone.gg is a free-to-use platform that allows you to increase FPS, optimize your games, and overall improves your gaming experience in any game you can think of, like Apex Legends, Fortnite, League of Legends, and of course, Valorant. I was honored to test it out myself, and I was able to get a 100 FPS increase from 300 FPS to all the way to 500 FPS by just applying the simple settings they recommended to me, such as turning on general Windows optimization, disable Windows power throttling, and just turning on their preset Valorant optimization. Hone.gg is rated super highly at 4.5 stars on Trustpilot, and if you want to join me and hundreds of thousands more users, make sure to click the link in the description to not only support the channel, but also optimize your PC. Again, it's super easy to use, very user-friendly, and did I say it was all free? Thanks again for Hone.gg for sponsoring this video, and with all that being said, let's hop straight into optimizing our settings. First, we're going to start with general optimizations that are useful to know and understand for your settings. So going into the first thing I changed was the outline color. If you didn't know, this setting changes the outline of your enemies, but there's a much deeper reasoning behind why you should change this, other than it looking pretty. If you ever wondered why you see red in places like stop signs or stop lights, it's because red is the easiest to see in further distances. Yellow is the fastest color you see. That's the reason why taxis are yellow, as you can spot it the quickest. I personally use the outline color of yellow as most maps require speed rather than distance in my opinion. However, it is personal preference on your playstyle as well as your agent you play. Now let's talk about sensitivity. Everyone has their own environment and their own mousepad space. However, there is a quote-unquote most optimal sensitivity range that you should be lying around. The average sensitivity for pro players are around the 0.25 to 0.4 range on 800 dpi. I personally play on 0.27, which is on the lower end of the spectrum, as I lean towards precision and accuracy when I'm aiming. But if you are choosing a sense or thinking about switching your sense, Valorant tailors lower sense due to the fact that they have so much importance on first shot accuracy as well as your microflicks, as that is the most common thing in duels. To add on, I also added raw input buffer. This setting change will ensure that you reduce input lag with your mouse and all the actions you make are instant actions in game without any additional processing. This personally helps my consistency in my aim as well as my overall performance, and if you don't have it, I highly recommend turning it on. Now going into my map settings, this is the most optimal map setting. First, I have the map fixed. It just allows me to concentrate more in game since it's a static image rather than having a moving one, where in a chaotic game like Valorant can make or break a round. I also have the map based on the side, which allows me to understand the map a little bit better depending on the side I'm on. Again, this just aids in consistency for yourself and your own information. Right here is probably the most important map setting to change, which is to have player center turned off. This setting off will allow you to actually see the whole map instead of parts of it, which will limit the amount of information you can get. And again, like most of you know, information is the most important part of Valorant, and cutting it off by turning this setting on is a huge troll and just deleting a huge chunk of useful information you can gain. Lastly, overall, you should have your minimap be a pretty large size to be able to quickly reference it with ease without the need to strain your eyes. As well, another useful tool to have on the minimap is the vision cones and show map region names. This will help you know where your teammates are holding, as well as help you know callouts in case of a new map dropping or if a map comes back into rotation and you simply just forgot a callout. Now for the rest of the settings, most of it is personal preferences, although there are some worth mentioning. First is bullet tracers. I have this on as it helps me personally guide my spray control a little bit better, especially since Valorant has a pretty randomized spray control, and just having that piece of aid helps me a lot. Another thing as well is I turn off show blood and show corpses. Again, I try to optimize my settings as much as possible. This personally declutters my screen, which again helps me focus a lot better during games, as well as for me personally personally helps me reduce a bit of lag, especially in situations with a lot of dead bodies around the floor. Now moving on to the controls, I personally have stayed pretty close to default settings with just a few changes. For example, my walk key is on C. This personally allows me to reach it better, and I've just been using C as my walk key since my CSGO days. I also have jump binded to my mouse wheel. This is mostly out of comfort when I transition to CS. However, this does allow me to jump if I need to when I'm holding my walk key if I do ever need to shift jump. The last change is having my team voice push the talk to my mouse button. I always preach how important communication is, and I know a lot of my students who I've coached before really struggled with this due to the fact of how inconvenient their communication button was. I personally changed it to my mouse button as it allows me to calm in any situation without it hindering my movement or aim, which is a huge help if I need to simultaneously calm during big fights or when I'm doing skill jumps. So going into our crosshair, I have a good amount of crosshairs I use, but I only specifically use a select 3, which has proven to me that I can perform on the best at. The first crosshair is 1520, which focuses mainly on precision. The second crosshair is 1723, which focuses on speed and flicks. And lastly, the most infamous crosshair here, the 10s crosshair, which is 1422, which is my personal go-to whenever I feel like I need a safe bet, as this is my comfort pick. Again, crosshair is very dependent on the person and player, and you should use the crosshair that you feel the most confident on and comfortable with. Okay, moving on to the videos tab, this is where the magic happens and where your FPS will increase or decrease depending on what settings you have applied. My settings are all applied to be able to run Valorant at its highest FPS possible, so follow along if this is what you're interested in having. First, always have full screen mode on. This heavily reduces the amount of input lag you have in your game. Next is your resolution. A good rule of thumb here is that the lower your resolution you go, the higher the FPS you get. I personally cap myself at around 1280 by 960, where in my opinion is where you get the most benefits while still being able to see your screen pretty clearly. But if you are playing on a setup that doesn't have that luxury, going on 1024 by 768 isn't the worst ever. Now going into limiting your FPS, I personally make it so that the limit is off so my computer is able to run at its highest FPS during games. But if you experience a lot of FPS drops or tears in your gameplay, I highly suggest putting it so it caps at your monitor's refresh rate. For example, I have a 185Hz monitor, so I would cap mine at 185 FPS, or if I had a 60Hz monitor, I would cap it at 60 FPS. Also, if you have the option, make sure to add the NVIDIA Reflex Low Latency to on plus boost. This essentially combines both GPU and game optimizations. Now going to graphics quality, if you have multi-threading available to you, this basically helps Valorant use your PCs to its full potential and dramatically boost your performance in game. I also have all 4 of my graphics settings to low. This again just improves performance, and most are not needed in order to perform well in game. It doesn't really change any mechanics nor gameplay that will hinder you. I personally have Vignette turned off as well as my VSync. Vignette essentially darkens the side of your screen to help you focus more in the middle, and it does gain a small FPS boost if on. However, like I said earlier, information is crucial in the game, and having your side peripherals is a huge aspect in Valorant. And darkening that portion removes pieces of information that you could need. As for VSync, I have this turned off due to the fact that I personally don't receive any screen tears, and if turned on, will reduce my performance. But if you do experience a lot of tearing during your games, I highly suggest to sacrifice a little bit of performance in order to prevent further tearing from happening, as that is much more detrimental than a few FPS drops. For the rest of the settings on this page, I all have it turned off or to its lowest setting. Yes, some will benefit you and can allow your game to look a lot cleaner and with more clarity, but when I personally turn everything off, I gain a huge boost in FPS, which for me is much more worth it to have a consistent high performance rather than some lighting and character model changes. Now going into stats, there are only really a couple of things that you should have turned on. Obviously you should have your FPS, your ping, and your packet loss turned on to know your overall PC performance in Valorant and internet. I personally only have these to text only in order to reduce the amount of clutter on my screen, except for the one exception of shooting errors. Having a graph greatly benefits you if you are really struggling with improving in your counter strafing and dead zoning. This basically guides you on knowing if you are fully stopping inaccurate or missing your timings with your movement, which will help you adjust for future duels and fix your past movement mistakes. Lastly, going over to audio, the main things you should know is to have your overall volume be very dominant to maintain focus in game and allows you to hear every nook and cranny. I know a lot of you put Valorant at a lot lower than it should be, which greatly reduces focus and prevents you from entering the flow state in game as you aren't fully locked in. Also, do not forget to enable HRTF. HRTF stands for Head Related Transfer Function and basically allows you to know where a sound is coming from 10 times easier, especially in Valorant with a lot of verticality and small positioning. It really helps you pinpoint exact footsteps around you. Okay, that is pretty much it for the video. Thanks everyone for watching and all the recent support that you guys been giving me. We have been growing rapidly and you can see me right now, I literally have the fattest smile across my face. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to drop a like and subscribe if you haven't already. I also do indeed have a Discord. It's growing pretty fast, and if you're interested in joining and being able to talk to me, talk to like-minded Valorant players, and just get some advice on how to rank up or have any questions at all, make sure to join that up. In the Discord server, you can also see my coaching as well. I've been coaching for over 2 years now and have a good amount of knowledge on how to improve in ranked and literally the shortest amount of time possible. You can also see some of my past students on the screen as well, and I can guarantee that after our session, you will improve and have much further insight than you did before. Once again, for the final time, thanks everyone so much for watching. Really appreciate you guys sticking around to the end, and have a great rest of your day.